Welcome. Each week I take a look at the data that's coming in about COVID-19 to do an analysis to see what is really going on. This video covers the week ending the 24th of May 2020, and I've subtitled this video Missed Opportunities. The main points I'm going to cover today are that the pandemic is still spreading. The United States, Brazil and Russia are the current epicenters of the outbreak. Early inaction by our political leaders cost many lives, and that opening too early is already beginning to show signs of costing us yet more lives. Let's compare the numbers for this week with last week to see how we are progressing. Globally, the number of cases has reached 5.3 million, which is a change of 460,000, which is an increase of 8% over the previous week. Global deaths have reached 342,000. That's an increase of 31,000, or an increase of 15%. The number of US cases has reached 1.66 million, with an increase of 134,000 in the last week, which is an increase of 9%. The number of US deaths is 98,000. That's an increase of 8,000 over the previous week, which is a drop of 3% over the previous week, which means that this is good news at last. Overall, the lethality, which is defined as the number of deaths by the number of confirmed cases, is 7%. And that equivalent figure for flu is 0.1 to 0.2%. So this is confirming that COVID-19 is much more deadly than the flu, despite what some people are trying to tell you. Let's take a look and see how this outbreak is distributed around the world and look at the best performing and the worst performing countries. The largest numerical increases occurred in the United States, Brazil and Russia, each with more than 50,000 new cases. The largest percentage increases occurred in India, Brazil, South Africa, Egypt, Mexico, Saudi Arabia, Russia, Iran, Sweden, USA and Canada, in that order, all with more than 10% increase in their numbers. The lowest increases were in China, Australia, South Korea, Norway and France, with less than 1% increases. Of two of those, China and South Korea, one day of this last week had no increases at all. From these countries that have been doing a particularly good job on handling this pandemic, we can get a set of best practices. They have a number of things in common, like early shelter-in-place programs. They instituted travel bans and plus isolation, not just travel restrictions. They had early and widespread testing so they could trace who had the disease and who were unwitting carriers of the disease because they were showing no symptoms. They isolated the sick so they didn't infect others. They had very thorough contact tracing programs that enabled them to identify people that may have been exposed so they could go into isolation and to see whether they develop the symptoms, and if they do, not to spread those symptoms to the rest of the public. This is something we have to learn for the future. If is a mighty big word. Now, it has become clear from a report that's just been issued that if we had acted earlier, we could have saved a lot of lives. Most countries issued shelter-in-place orders within 3 to 5 days of the first indications that the disease was spreading. The Trump administration waited 22 days. This study showed that if we had gone into shutdown even a week earlier than we had, we could have saved up to 36,000 American lives. If we'd done it 2 weeks earlier, more in line with what the rest of the world did, we could have saved 54,000 American lives. Plus, not had the economic and social disruption that we've all had to suffer. Those who are familiar with the previous videos I've made on this subject will recognize this plot. The red line shows the global accumulated number of cases, and you can see it's been going up as a straight line for the last few weeks. However, if we project that line forward, you'll see that the solid red line has now moved to the left of the dotted red line, which is the one that I've been working to. And therefore, it means that the number of cases are increasing more rapidly than they were in the last month or two. That is not a good sign. You can see that trend in the background plot, the number of new cases. That's the colored green, yellow and gray plot in the background there. And if you look at the trend there, you can see there's a distinct upward trend for the last couple of weeks. This seems to be occurring as places are opening up prematurely, which is increasing the number of cases, plus also other countries are getting to their peak infection rates, and so the number is going up. Neither of those factors are a good sign. It means that the COVID-19 pandemic is still alive and well and has placed for a resurgence in the coming months. Here is the equivalent curve for the United States, and here we have some good news. You can see the dashed linear trend that I put on the curve and have been working to the last few weeks, but now the US curve is bending to the right, which means that the infection rate is going down. However, a word of caution here, this rate is decreasing for a very good reason. The places like New York, New Jersey, Louisiana, California, and Washington, which had the major number of cases over the last few months, have turned their curve over. The rest of the United States has not. So you have to be very careful with these numbers. You almost have to look at them state by state. Given all of this, it's worth repeating that you should be staying at home unless you absolutely must go out. When you're out, wear a mask at all times. Stay at least 6 feet away from others. Beware of communal surfaces, and by that I mean door handles, railings, restrooms, things of that sort. Wash your hands frequently, in fact more frequently than you think you need to. And if you feel unwell, immediately self-isolate. If the symptoms don't get better, or at worst, or if the symptoms don't get better or get worse, call a doctor. That's it for this week. I hope you all stay safe and see you next time.